if I'm talking to them.
Hello, welcome to the first live event for SC4X, Supply Chain Technology and Systems. Thank you for your patience. Many of you were planning to see this live event earlier, but due to some intense weather here in Cambridge, we had to postpone. Today's live event I'm very excited about because I have my friend and colleague with me, Dr. Inma Borrella. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
You probably already know Inma as a course lead and you've worked with her in your courses, but you might not know about some of the research she does here at the center. So I'm excited for you to get to know Inma in that sense too. I'll do just a couple of the boring administrative notes to start to make sure that we get through them, and then we'll jump right into a discussion with Dr. Borella. As far as the course goes, you know we're coming into week 5, which is a break week. That's great. Take that time to study, to get ready for your midterm exam. We also have your first virtual field trip, which we're very excited to share with you. So please take a note to look at that, to spend some time watching that video, because we'll do some more learning exercises with it when you come back from the midterm. Another technical note, because we're coming up on the holidays, the week after next, you actually have 2 weeks of nothing going on. So we'll have our break week in week 5. Well, there's content going on, but not testable content. And then we'll take the week of the 23rd off. And then your midterm will open on January 1st. So all of those dates are there in your key course dates, but I wanted to make sure you're aware of them. One last note before we get to the exciting part. Thank you to all of you who wrote in and posted in the forum with your concerns about the new version of Orange. I sent in the course email and I'll post an update. We're going to look at week 4 GA2 and regrade to everyone's benefit. And the midterm will be 100% compatible with the new version and the old version. Okay, enough of that stuff. Thank you for listening. Now let's go into the exciting stuff. You spent a lot of time learning about why we might use data to answer questions. And then if we decide we want to, how do we do it? How do we find data? How do we clean data? How do we process data? And what's really exciting is Dr. Borella is doing very similar work right now. And I thought maybe she could tell us about it within the context of something you know about online education. So Inma, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me.
The floor is yours, and we're excited to learn about the work that you're doing and help our learners understand why it's worth their time to learn how to work with data.
Cool. Yeah, so I prepared a presentation. I'm gonna share it with you. And just before starting, I'm really excited to be like having this live event with you guys, because I'm usually with learners at the beginning of your MicroMaster journey in SC0X and SC1X. So it's exciting to see you now in SC4X, almost at the end of the journey and just before taking the CFX. So congratulations for making it here. And I hope you find interest in the research we are doing, because it's, you're very involved in online learning and online education. You're experiencing it firsthand. And we really, really worry a lot about our courses, how to make them better for you, improve your learning and your engagement. So this is what I want to talk about today, how we've been using data to improve our courses and our program, so it's better for you. This research has been funded by the MIT Integrated Learning Initiative, because from MIT, like not only us, but a lot of other people doing great efforts to improve the way we deliver education online for everyone, anyone, anywhere. Okay, let me see if this works. There we go. So our approach, I just wanted to start with like, general idea of what we do. So we really, what moves us is we want to educate the world for free. So we're offering all our content for free, but we also want to credential qualified students at a minimum cost. So all of you are verified students, so you know what I mean. And offer a pathway to graduate education. So this is a very innovative pathway to get a master's degree at some point if you're interested. And so this is really our mission and what drives us to continuously improve and come to work every day and give the most of us. How we do it, we're always striving to provide quality content. So always reviewing the content, always seeing what works, what doesn't, and how we can do innovative things that for your benefits. For example, the field trips that they've had created for SE4X are very cool, bringing reality to the course. We also strive to improve engagement. So your engagement, what makes you more engaged with the course, what makes you feel part of this program, even if you're alone in your house taking the course, like with your computer at night or in the weekends, we want you to feel engaged with the contents, engaged with us, and engaged with your peers. And the third point is integrity. This credential is important. It has a relevance. MIT giving you a credential when you finish the MicroMasters. So we don't want, for us, integrity is very important. We don't want people just to collaborate in exams or copying the solutions from other people. So we put a lot of effort in integrity too, to make sure that anyone who gets to the end and gets the MicroMasters credential is because they deserve it.
And just to add on to that, you may have seen in week 9, we will do a proctored graded assignment. Proctoring is part of that integrity that Inma's talking about. And I know that you will hate it and it will be annoying, but it's keeping the integrity, just like Inma said, is important to us, and it's important for you so that your credential is worth something out in the world, because it's very hard to, you can't cheat and get it. You have to have earned it.
Yeah, good point. So for all these things, this is the way we achieve like our mission. For all these points, we use data. So we're always working with data to find a way of like getting a better quality content, understanding what is good, what is not good, getting more engagement and better integrity. So we do data analysis, reflection, a lot of reflection and debates, and innovation. Today, I want to talk about engagement. This is what my focus has been. Other colleagues have been working more in integrity or content development, but I've been focused on engagement for the past year and a half, just seeing how engaged learners are and how can we like make you more engaged to avoid dropouts. So this is the agenda for today. First, I want to just like give you like the whole picture, talk about the MicroMasters in numbers, then explain to you what's the dropout problem and what it looks like for our courses. Told you about the predictive model we've developed and our ideas for interventions, and end up with some conclusions. So let's start with the numbers. You might be familiar with these, but these numbers keep changing and we keep growing and growing. So I think it's always exciting to see the scope of our program and how big it's become in only 5 years. So we've run 34 massive open online courses and 5 proctor final exams to date. More than 300,000 learners have enrolled in our courses, and almost 23,000 of them have verified. These are unique learners, so it's a lot of people from all around the world. 196 countries represented and 82 amazing community teaching assistants from around the world who volunteer to create a great learning experience in our forum and help you with like any questions or problems you might have with the content. And we have awarded almost 2,000 MicroMasters credentials so far, which is like really, really great.
And just to add on to what he was saying, think about how when we say early on, sometimes big data is anything that crashes Excel. The records that Inma looks at with 327,000 learners, she'll talk to you about the data, but it's big. It's bigger than whatever your maybe typical business spreadsheet solution could handle. And one other note, hello to I apologize in advance, Shivashari, and hello to Matt SCH. Thank you for your notes and your questions. Any of you can send in questions with that question tab on the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to them as soon as we can at the end.
Yeah. And yeah, well, yeah, we'll go to the questions later. Yeah. So just to show you the how big these numbers are, I love to show like this picture because when we see the numbers, it's hard to understand, you know, how many people does it represent? Like 23,000, what does it mean? So all these people, these are MicroMasters holders, but they represent only 0.1% of all the people who have ever enrolled in our courses. So imagine how many people are out there that are taking SCX courses, just like you're doing. But something that is interesting when we look at the data is to see how from these more than 300,000 people who enroll in SCX courses, only 23,000 verify. And of these 23,000, only 11,000 have passed at least one course. So, and then from these 11,000, only 2,000 have achieved a MicroMaster credential so far. So we see a funnel of participation in our MicroMasters, which, I mean, I think it's reasonable, but what we want to see is more and more people getting through this funnel and achieving the credential. So, well, by looking at these numbers, we started to wonder, well, what is happening in the courses? Are we experiencing a high dropout rate? How many people are abandoning the course before finishing it? So we look at the numbers of, this is data from 2017, but we also have data from 2018 and 2019. But it's what I had on hand and already like with the analytics done. So I just wanted to show you this. In 2017, we ran 9 MOOCs with 12,000 verified learners. And so this is how the distribution looks like. Most of these learners were in SE0X and SE1X. That's when we had more learners too at the beginning of the pipeline. And 4,000 of them, 4,000 of these 11,500 verified learners dropped out the course. This means they abandoned before getting to the final exam. So they never took the final exam. They just abandoned the course sometime before that. So for us, this is worrying. This number is not very big for being a MOOC, but we just want to make our MOOCs very, very successful. So you want people who pay to get the certificate, at least to get to the end of the course. So that's why we worried when we saw this. But of course, to explore this problem further, we had to define what dropout means. And you could be surprised by like, how many different definitions of dropout are out there. And if we want to work with data, we really need to know what dropout means. So we define dropout just that a learner drops out in the course the moment he or she stops submitting graded problems. Because, you know, like we understand that at that point, if someone stops submitting graded problems and doesn't submit any graded problem throughout the course anymore, it's because they just gave up on getting the certificate, gave up on really like achieving what their first goal was when they paid for getting verified. And you're very familiar with the distribution of grade, so I won't stop here. But this is how we break down the course to study the data. We need to really clearly create buckets of contents. So these lessons are your weeks, week 1, week 2, week 3. But we have to look into data from 2 different standpoints, in terms of contents and also in terms of time, because as you know, like the weeks overlap with each other. So this was really challenging. It seems very obvious at the beginning, but it's hard for working with the data. So we had to play with these 2 different dimensions.
I think this is a good opportunity for you all to think about, if you remember your CRISP DM framework lesson, understanding the business goals, which Inma laid out, and then understanding the data. And it's not always immediately obvious which data answers the business's questions or which definition of dropout is most useful. So it's interesting to see it presented this way, where you can see where a learner disengages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you could make a more specific definition, you know, maybe it's the last time they clicked on the course, but you also need to see how easy is get that data and how fast can you react if you want not only to predict, but also to intervene, as we will discuss later. Mm-hmm. So for us, this was a good balance, just defining dropout based on the submission of graded problems. So then we said, okay, let's look a little further into this dropout and try to classify them. So we came up with this 2x2 matrix, and we said, okay, let's classify our dropouts just by looking at if they watch videos or they never watch any video in the course, and if they submit or not submit graded assignments. So for all this group of dropouts that I mentioned earlier in 2017, we learned that 57% of them were learners that drop out at some point in the course. This means these people were watching videos, they were submitting graded assignments, taking the exam maybe, but at some point they just gave up and stopped taking the course, stopped submitting graded problems. Those are learners who abandoned. And we would expect this group to be like 100% of the dropouts, right? But we also had voyeurs. So these people were watching videos, but they never submit any graded problem. So we wonder, why did they verify, right? They could take the course without paying. But yeah, they did verify, but never submit any graded assignment. These are 29% of our dropouts. And even more surprising, we had some zombies. These are people who do not watch any videos in the course and do not submit any grade assignment, and still they got verified at the beginning of the course. And these represent a 14% of all our verified or our dropout learners in the course, dropouts in the course. And finally, we define another group that would be magicians. If they don't watch any videos and they're able to submit grade assignments and maybe getting a good grade. So that would be very surprising. Fortunately, they are 0%, and this means we're doing a good job in controlling integrity in our courses.
Even at this level, this is so surprising to me. So if we were just having a casual conversation, I would not have guessed there'd be so many voyeurs until you analyze the data to see it. That's really interesting.
Yes, we weren't expecting to find these people either, but when we look at the data and we saw like a big chunk of our verified learners weren't submitting any graded problems, so we had a 0 at the end of the course. That's when we started to look further into like if they were watching videos or not even becoming active in the course at all.
And that's such a neat feature of the data. So you can see what their attempts to answer problems, but also their clicks.
Yes.
Wow,
yes,
that's great.
Correct. Yes. We have a lot of information through the platform. We are missing the live interaction with learners. That would be great, but at least we can see how people behave.
Wow.
So I have a question for you, because I'm really curious, and as we just mentioned, for us now, it's great to have the numbers and have the big picture, but I would love to hear from you if you have ever become a dropout in one of our ICX courses. So we're gonna activate a poll. You should be able to watch it now. Yeah, great. And I see you're very engaged learners, which is great.
I see 4X learners, strongest.
Sorry, these are the good ones. But I'll let you respond the poll, and maybe I can share the results a little bit. I'll give you a few more seconds. Don't be shy. Just please, this is very interesting to know. Like, if some of you have dropped out, and also like why this might have happened, because what we're trying to do, this is not just to say, hey, you did a bad job, you shouldn't have dropped out, is to understand where you struggled and what can we do to help or to change that, or to improve the situation so you don't need to drop out.
A lot of times in this kind of project where we're analyzing data, you know, sometimes presenting a result like this that's surprising and then discussing it, the greater insight comes from discussion, you know, so we can say, wow, 29% voyeurs, I wouldn't have expected that. And then we can have a really meaningful discussion about why does that happen? How does that happen? And it looks like some of you, I mean, most of you, you will share the official results, but many of you have not dropped out, but some of you had. And now we can think about why and how and what we can do in that situation.
Yeah, so let's say the results, because there, I think 8 people left, but they are a little shy. I don't know if they will be answering. So, so these are the results. Most of you have never become a dropout in ICX courses. Congrats, that's great. That's the learners we want. But a few of you have actually dropped out. Some of you were learner dropout, and some of you were a zombie dropout. So we will talk later about the reasons behind this, and I have another poll for you to respond. But yeah, it is interesting to see that like you got here even after dropping out in some of the courses. So good job.
And thank you for your chat posts too. We'll try to keep up with those as we go and certainly review them later. I think the point I've seen in there now that life can happen, you know, we're very aware that and impressed by you all that in addition to the rest of your life, which can include work, school, family, friends, you take on a part-time job with us doing our courses, and big events can disrupt that schedule. So we understand it, and you know, it's instructive to us to learn about why people with great intentions to learn sometimes have to take a step away.
Yeah, I've been talking to some learners. So we look at data and we're also trying to combine this with more qualitative data. So talking to people or exchanging information with learners that have experienced this. And many people report this, like unexpected life event or, you know, like work travel all of a sudden, a new project assigned to you, and, you know, all of a sudden you cannot just juggle with work and family and the course at the same time because something happened. So this is very useful. Okay, let me stop sharing the poll. So just diving a little deeper into this dropout problem, we look into where the dropout was happening. So this is the distribution of the dropouts throughout the weeks of the courses. And as you can see, like the biggest chunk of dropouts are zombies and voyeurs. So a lot of people just get verified and then they don't even try because, I don't know, they verified and maybe something happened. We still don't know. We don't have like all the reasons for these people to, why these people drop out and they without even like trying anything, because it's also hard to gather this information because these are people who disengage very early. So it's not even if we reach out to them, we don't get a lot of responses. So it would be great if you have some feedback on that. And then we can see that another big dropout happens right after the midterm exam. So people take the midterm, maybe they get discouraged with like the level of difficulty and they give up after that. But these are all hypotheses. This was just like the first descriptive analytics exploration of the data to understand what the dropout problem was, how it looked like.
But you all are going to stay with SE4X right through our midterm exam. I know it.
Until the final.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant.
So, so we started this project. We thought it was interesting looking into this further and try to do something about it. Not also like characterizing the dropouts, but see if we could take some action. So we decided to take an approach of like predicting and intervening. So our question was, can we predict which verified learners will drop out by analyzing data from the platform, their behavior, but also when they enrolled or when they verified, also demographic characteristics. So we could look at many different data points to be able to predict if someone will drop out. And if we can predict that, our idea is we can intervene, we can do something about it and maybe avoid that dropout, avoid losing this learner and get him or her through the end of the course. So our objectives were to build a predictive model to identify the most relevant predictors to get more information about why the dropout was happening, and then propose and test targeted interventions to reduce this dropout rate. And once we find someone that is an intervention that is successful, we can roll it out throughout all our courses for the benefit of all our learners. So let's talk about the predictive model. Our sample, we decided to focus on the first 3 courses of the MicroMaster because that's where we observed the biggest dropout rate. SE3X and SE4X usually have more engaged learners because it's at the end of the pipeline, at the end of the MicroMasters. So of these 3, in these 3 courses, we had 140,000 enrolled learners in 2017 and 9,000 verified. So we focus on these 9,000 verified because are the ones who showed an intent to finish the course, right? They paid, so they are supposed to finish to get the certificate. So these verified learners, we had a little less than 25% were female, and most of them had a bachelor or master's degree. And demographics were 28% from USA, 9% from India, 6% from Brazil. These are the 3 most represented countries. Just to get an idea of what a data sample was. It's always good to know like what your data sample looks like before starting to working with it. And then we need to like decide which data we're gonna use to build this predictive model. So we look into Google BigQuery, that's where all the data from the courses is collected, to understand what kind of information we will be able to gather. We had Google BigQuery, that's all the clickstream data from the courses, from all the learners, aggregated and anonymized. And then we have also data from the grade reports. That's also very relevant data.
Could you describe for learners, I see some questions coming up, clickstream data, generally what does it include?
Clickstream data includes every click that is made in the platform. So every click is recorded, and we can then aggregate and understand better like what's the learning behavior of people in our courses. So we can identify which part of the course got more clicks, what videos seem to be more successful. Then we can also look at how many attempts people or how much time. We do that through a proxy though, but yeah, we try also to see how much time people spend in the grading assignments as a proxy for difficulty. So if we have how much time you spend in the grading assignment, and then we cross that with how was the average grade that was achieved in the grading assignment, we can see like how difficult that was. And of course, we also have the feedback surveys after each grading assignment, where you report your perceived difficulty for the grading assignment. So if we put all these data points together, we can get a pretty good sense of if the grading assignment is too difficult or it's like too easy, because we want to find a balance between those.
So you can see everything a learner clicks on and the timestamp that they clicked on it?
Yes, correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really impressive data set. Did it take a lot of cleaning to get it the way that you needed it?
Yeah, I mean, it was the biggest amount of time, like just to figure out like which data we can use, how to extract it from the database, how to clean it, and how to create the variables from that data so it fits what we need for our predictive model. I don't know, it was 80%, 90% of the effort in the project. And we're still working on it, because the thing is, the database is created by EDX, or MITx, sorry, and it keeps changing. So it's not controlled by us. So we need to always like update our code, double check that everything that we extracted is correct. And yeah, it's a continuous work. It doesn't stop once you extracted it once. Because this is also our project. So the data, what I'm presenting today is based on the data from 2017, but this is an ongoing project. So we are always extracting new data, looking at this new data, analyzing it, because for any intervention that we want to implement, we need to apply our models to new data. So it's not just, you know, like this clean bucket of data that we just play with. It's we need to continuously extract new data and see how things change or not with the intervention.
Gosh, careful learners and observers will note that we had in the lecture that data cleaning could take 60% of project time, and Dr. Borella just said up to 80 or 90%, and our friend Dr. Boudelier, Justin from the CRISP DM videos, also said 80 to 90% of project time. So, you know, maybe a first take home for us is most of a data analysis project time is spent just cleaning up the data.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I have some comments later on that too, like how you need to, like, I think it's great to have a lot of data and use as much data as you can to diagnose the problem. And then also for the predictive model, if you're using machine learning, it's great to have a lot of data. It never hurts to have like a lot of data. But if you want to intervene to like implement something and assess the impact, the easier the better, I would say. If you can have like a very straightforward way of measuring the impact, that you don't need like a bunch of data and extract it and clean it, and it would be ideal. And then you can of course make that further analysis. But if you want to like experiment in an ongoing basis, it's better to have a simple, straightforward variable data that can be easily extracted in a periodic way.
And I hope that's motivation for you all who are struggling with MySQL. As you go into your own project, you can use any software that you enjoy. But for me, I think MySQL is a great data cleaning tool. You can do a lot of this hard work, and the more you learn now, the faster you can go through it when it's your time to clean data.
Yeah, then SQL is a great skill to have. So really go for it.
Awesome.
It's gonna be useful. Actually, BigQuery uses it's a different code, but SQL is very similar to SQL. So I think it's a basic one that then it will help to learn any other.
Excellent.
Yeah. So this is some type of the predictors that we defined, and then we work to extract the data from the platform. So it was not only extracting the data, it's like defining the variables. It was a lot of work too, and agreeing what it meant and which data would be good to just measure that variable. So the challenge was, since we wanted to predict while the course was live, we had limited information. So we decided to create time buckets and measure that variable, each variable for each time bucket to have more information to feed the predictive model. Taking into account that the predictive model was a machine learning algorithm. So the more data we feed it, the better we will perform. So this is how we, this is a lot to swallow, but just I wanted to show you that we created 38 different features to fit this predictive model. And we had to define each feature like very, very specifically, extract the data, clean the data, double check that everything was correct before feeding it to the machine learning algorithm. Feeding the machine learning algorithm was the easiest part of all. So it sounds very fancy, machine learning, but then, like, as you know now, and you're working with it in Orange, right?
Yes.
What is hard is to get the data ready and be sure that the data is correct. Then you just plug in the algorithm and you get the result. So the data part is the challenging part, defining, getting the data, cleaning it, making sure everything is correct. Always double checking 1, 2, 3 times that the data makes sense before feeding it to any model.
And I think this slide is a great example of thinking about the business understanding and the data understanding. So at a very high level, we can say, if someone disengages, they're probably going to drop out. But that's far too general for an actual data analysis project. So here you can see Dr. Borella has organized all of these parameters that will feed the predictive model that need to be specific. Clicks during 7 days, time spent since the last click, that specific understanding of the data that's available is really, I think, displayed well here.
Thank you. So once we had the data, and it was not only me working on this, Connor Makowski is our expert in data management and programming in the MicroMasters team, and also Sergio Caballero were very involved in all this process. So once we had the data ready, we chose 2 machine learning algorithms, random forest and logistic regression, because we like both. We thought both could perform well, and we wanted to see which results we would get. Because as I mentioned earlier, once we had the data, it was very easy just to test different algorithms on that data. It is important that we use a chronological approach to training and testing. Usually, just you have one bucket of data, and then you divide it in chunks. Just you use some for training, some for testing. What we did was a little bit different. We took a course that happened earlier in the year, and then for training, and then we tested that models, that trained algorithm in the later course, a course that happened later in the year. So we used it in a way, the same way we would use it in reality, because we would have that data.
And it was the same course, so it was trained on SC0X, tested on SC0X.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yes. We tried both, actually. We tried like just training with data from all the 3 courses and just testing it, but it performed worse because my guess is each course has its own specific characteristics and maybe different learners enroll, and so different types of learners. So we found out that it was more effective to train and test in the same course.
Interesting.
Yeah, and also we focus our evaluation. It's also important to notice that when you're like evaluating your algorithm, how well it performs, you can choose different metrics. So if you want to sell it like that you have a fantastic model, you could choose just accuracy. And the accuracy would be awesome for this model because it's very easy to predict that someone that is going well is going to finish the course. So accuracy is just saying, okay, my model classifies very well. everyone who is going to finish, saying, yes, this person is going to finish and finishes, and also predicting this person is going to not to finish and he does not finish or she does not finish. That will be like the accuracy. But we decided to focus on recall, because what we wanted to see is how many people who were gonna like abandon the course actually abandon the course before the end. That's really what is gonna be a good metric for the performance of our model. So always be aware when people present the results of their models, which metric they are using. I think this is very important, because you can like just make up a little bit your results depending on the metric you choose.
Okay, before we move on, I just want to pause here. This is another great slide, Dr. Borella. This is week 4, friends. So this is many of the concepts that are covered in your lectures for week 4 in actual application. So the 2 different algorithms that we're using in orange, testing and training data. We have that section on evaluation. And here, Dr. Borella is giving you a great example of how that's really a thoughtful thing. It's not just sort of automatic. You really need to think about the type of test that you're doing, because like in this case, and certainly I see this in healthcare and in other types of predictive models, sometimes you have a very unbalanced set. The thing that you're looking for is hard to find. So you need to understand the reality of the situation to know the trade-off between true positives, false positives, true negatives, false negatives. So this is a masterful presentation of all of that week 4 content.
Cool. I'm glad it fits with your content. So these were the results of our models. Here we report in recall and precision, and our results were pretty good. We were able on average to predict 4 out of 5 dropouts for our 3 courses. The prediction for the midterm was usually better than for the final. And I think this makes sense, because we had like, it's once the people pass the midterm, if they've taken the midterm, like usually they stick to the final. If they drop out, and this is a hypothesis, it might be because something unexpected happens. So it's harder to predict that just by looking at their behavior in the platform. While for the midterm, like a dropout at the midterm, if these people, for example, the zombies and voyeurs that I mentioned earlier, are in this bucket, it's very easy to predict that they are not going to complete the midterm if they haven't completed any grading assignment until the midterm. So that's why I think we got better results for the midterm and for the final. And the most relevant predictors were grade to date, number of missed assignments, clicks in assignments, and time spent in the course during the last 7 days. So very, very aligned with what we might have thought before doing this analysis. So grade is a big predictor of if people are going to drop out or not. So it's fantastic. We were able to predict 4 out of 5 dropouts, but what about it? And this is an interesting question, because out there in the literature on online education, there's so much research, so many research papers about predictive models. So how to predict dropouts. We're able to predict very accurately. We have a lot of data, but there are not so many papers on how can we do about it. Because this is the hard part, right? Predicting is easy, relatively easy with a big amount of data, but deciding or figuring out what to do to reduce the dropout is very hard. So what we've done is just look at different factors. What are the factors that might be driving dropout? And we extract this from the literature. So we know that there are internal factors that can be like course related or student related, and external factors that we cannot control. So these unexpected life events could be external factors. And we know we cannot really like influence that. So we are not focusing on it. Life happens. What can we do about it? But we can change the course or rethink the way we are teaching our contents. We can also try to make you feel different, more confident, more engaged by taking maybe some measures in the way we engage with you in the forums, in the way you interact with each other, with your peer students. So there are many different things that could be done. Regarding course-related factors, our hypotheses are that some contents are particularly challenging for learners because they are more challenging for anyone in general. So we could try to focus on those and see if we teach them in a different way or provide some different resources that can help. And also another hypothesis is that learners get discouraged when facing difficult content early in the course. This is a very natural thing. I think we've all have experienced it. If you're hit very hard in week one, either you're very tough or you just, decide like, this is too much for me. I don't know if I can make it. So we're trying to, or one of the ideas is just to increase difficulty progressively throughout the weeks and also throughout the course. Regarding student-related factors, we found that sometimes people have a lack of motivation, and other times people feel they are not prepared enough. So they feel there's a lack of resources, maybe because they don't have the background that is required, or it doesn't mean that they cannot make it. It just means that they need more resources to be able to deal with the challenges of the courses. So these are just the 4 areas we're working on right now, trying to design interventions and see how they work and if it really improves the student experience. But there might be others, and this is an ongoing research, so we will be more than happy to hear from you to understand what were your reasons for dropping out or even thinking about dropping out, and just try to innovate and find ways of making everything easier for you. So I have a second poll, and then the conclusions slide.
Yeah.
So let me activate the second poll. It's about the reasons for dropping out, right? So the question is, if you did drop out in a SCX course, what was the reason? But maybe let's open it a little bit more, because I know most of you didn't drop out. If you thought about dropping out, what was the reason? Even if you didn't do it at the end and you were able to finish, what was like really hindering you from finishing the course, or like making you like doubt about being able to get to the end?
And this is helpful both for Dr. Borella's research and maybe for us and your peers to understand how people fit these courses into your lives. So let us know what's on your mind. If you were thinking about leaving, why?
Yeah.
And then I see a lot of you have asked some really great questions. So once we get through Dr. Borella's presentation, I'll share the questions with Inma, and she'll have all the answers.
Yeah, hope so. Okay, so.
Wow, mixed.
It's great. It seems like we got a good understanding of what might be the factors behind dropout. Also, like some of you responded other. So what I will do, if you don't mind, Dave, is when we send a follow-up for the webinar with a link to the video and more information, I will be happy to share one of the papers that we just recently published, in case you're interested in reading more about it and see like all the details, because it is a very like high-level presentation. I will share also a link to a questionnaire. So if you're interested in like letting us know more about like what you struggled with, or why were you considering to drop out, or if you drop out, why you did it, we will be more than happy to hear it. For me, it's great to collect more information from you directly. So we will send this poll out after the webinar. Let's share the results. So most of you said unexpected life event happened. So it was like make things really challenging. And this is what we've heard over and over and over. And also poor time management. I totally understand you. I think that's a challenge for everyone. And you're taking the courses and also have a life and have a work. So it's understandable. And we're trying to create like some tools to help you with time management too. That would be exciting to implement. And And also like contents were too challenging for some of you and discouraged you to poor grades. But like happy to see you are here, even like
Yeah.
After all those challenges.
And if you ever find something especially challenging, of course, you can reach out to our help email, SC4XHelp. And I really encourage you to post in the forums. I just spent about half an hour with the community teaching assistants, and they are passionate about helping you. So if something seems, I saw we had a note here in the chat that sometimes the learner feels overwhelmed and thinks about leaving. I'd ask you as a first step before you leave, I mean, maybe you have to, but post in the forum you're concerned, because I think some of our CTAs really enjoy teaching and would really enjoy at least the chance to try to help you with any doubts.
Yeah, and also like please use the feedback surveys in the course, because we always review that after the course and we take those into account to improve it. So if we identify that one week was particularly challenging or the problems were not very well connected to the content, we will take care of that for the next round. So just, we do look at the feedback surveys, so fill them out. So yeah, just to wrap up before like answering your questions, I just wanted to share like 4 points. For me, this project is really exciting, and data analytics is a powerful tool to understand and address problems. It's powerful because you can like make good diagnosis and also like understand the impact of your actions. So it's powerful in these 2 ways. It guides your decisions and also helps you to assess if what you're doing is helping or not. Data definition, extraction, and cleaning consumes most of the time of any data analytics project. So don't get discouraged. If you think you're losing your time, like you spend 2 weeks just looking at data, trying to figure out, I recommend you to start with defining very clearly your variables. And I always write a dictionary for all the variables, because especially if you're working with more people, it's important that everyone has the same understanding of the data. And also, even if you're working by yourself, we tend to forget very fast, or at least I do. So if you do something and then you look at it 1 month later, you won't know what it was about or what was the specific definition. So write the definitions and be super exact on that definition.
Life can happen there too. You start your project, something takes you off it, you have something to come back to.
Yeah, so, and don't all the time you spend on the data is well spent time. Even if you're very willing to start to see the results, if you don't have good data, you won't have good results. Just focus on the data first. So we build a predictive model that can predict 80% of dropout. That's fantastic. But if we don't combine prediction with intervention, then it's not worth at all. It's not worth for anything. So just instead of focusing on improving the predictive model, I decided this is good enough. Let's move and focus on the interventions, because it doesn't matter having a very good predictive model if you don't know how to act to reduce the dropout in our case. And finally, integrating models in decision-making processes is very challenging. So I didn't deep dive into that today because it's very specific, but there's usually a gap between a theoretical model and the actual deployment, in the sense that usually when you work with the data, it's like an ETL world. So we have data from 2017, we analyze it, we create the model, everything works great. Then when you need to apply the model in an ongoing course, new challenges arise. So you don't have all the data you need in the day you need it before you implement an intervention. So you need to really adjust your model and adapt to the real life situation. So just keep this in mind. One thing is the ideal world, and maybe the space where you work at when you're creating the model and getting all the data. And then once you want to implement it in real life, other conditions might prevent you from applying it in the exact same way you did when you were working just with a data set that was stable and from a past date. So this will happen to us. It doesn't need to happen in all the projects, but it's something to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
And also defining the metrics that are going to be really what makes sense for your project, to see if the model works or not just choosing the metric that looks the best for selling out the project, at least internally for you. If you then want to choose the other one to sell the project out, that's also interesting. But look what metric is valuable for really assessing the value of the project.
And that's part of that business understanding step. You know, I think we oftentimes have learners that are very, very excited to say that they can execute a certain machine learning algorithm. But I think what Inma has shown is that's not the whole job. You need to understand why that algorithm is right, how to prepare the data for that algorithm, and then how to evaluate its performance in a way that's meaningful.
That's all I have.
Thank you so much. Do you have time for some questions?
Yes.
Great,
Sure.
let's stop sharing, and I will just be the reporter, and I will share your good questions with our honored guest. So the first one, Matt SCH asks, I think maybe a fellow research scientist here, where are you with this research? Maybe you could tell us about it. I know you've presented at conferences or journals. How does this research get out into the world, and what's happened so far?
So we got this grant from MIT, so we presented internally our results. We also published, we attended a conference last year on Learning at Scale conference, a really interesting one. This paper is published, and that's something I can share with all of you if you're interested. And also we're working now on another paper for an academic journal because we want to have some outputs from all the work from this past year and a half. But this project is ongoing because this is actually research for us. It's not just for publications. We're doing this because we care about the program and we really want to see an impact in our learners. So we will keep working on this and thinking about new ways, new innovations that we can introduce in the courses to increase engagement.
Shivahari asks about application of these techniques that we're learning to the supply chain. Do you have any sense or feeling, you know, we've talked about learners here. Can we use some of these same tools to consider supply chain problems?
Yeah, definitely. So for example, one of our colleagues, Sergio Caballero, who is the course lead for SC2X, is applying machine learning techniques for identifying phantom inventory. So I think he would be a great guest for your course, maybe
live
for
event
the next
too.
live event.
Yeah.
But it's been like predictive analytics is being widely applied to SCM now, and that's why companies are hiring so many experts in data analytics to work in supply chain. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, there's meetings and reports coming out all the time. Many people have a sense that there's power here. Not as many people can execute the models and understand how to do it. So we're very glad you're with us, learning how to do it. And
also I think it's very relevant because, okay, you can get data scientists out. There's not so many, but increasingly we have like a lot of people that are experts in data, but it's harder to find people who are experts in supply chain and can manage data and apply these algorithms to get good insights on like the management of the supply chain. So I do think it's a fantastic skill to have in your tool set.
Absolutely. Your supply chain knowledge from the courses, I think, will enable you to ask good questions, like good supply chain business relevant questions, whereas someone without that foundational knowledge may be able to execute the data science steps, but can't ask the meaningful questions. So you have two impressive hats. Brijesh asks, why would someone who spend money to be verified still be a voyeur? Just general hypothesis. Do you have any thoughts?
I don't know. I'm as surprised as you are. And if you know someone who have done it, or you know, like they were a voyeur or a zombie, just please like get in touch with us, because for me it's I don't know, it's a mystery. But yeah, I don't know. For my guess right now is that, you know, life happened for them, unexpected life event, and that prevented them from taking the course. But it's a big chunk of our dropouts. So yeah, it's that's why right now, like I want to like study dropouts in like two different buckets: the learners dropouts, the one that engage with the course and at some point they abandon, and then this group of voyeurs, zombies who never became engaged with the course, even after paying to become a verified. So I think those those groups need a different study and different interventions.
And that's one of the things that data analysis helps us to do, to identify the different groups and to tailor the interventions. Personally, this is my own hypothesis. I think it's like the gym or joining a sports team. Lots of people get really excited and they buy a gym membership, but then they don't stay with it. So I think there's lots of people that say, I'm gonna become a supply chain expert. And then like they do the first week and then they lose power or motivation.
New Year's.
Yeah, the gym is always the fullest in January, but just a hypothesis. Danielle Proctor, thank you for your questions. And Danielle asked, and I think this might be a good opportunity to ask you about data cleaning. What about refunds? Do we need to think about, can you get refund data? I think maybe you had to clean refund data. And does that influence the results?
Yeah, actually, that's a great question. And it's a question that I tackled, like, I think it was 3 weeks ago. I requested the refund data from MITx. I was able to get it, and for only one course, but it was non-significant at all. It was like if we checked like which people we were considering dropouts in our courses, because this is challenging to explain. Usually when people ask for a refund, their status switches to audit in our database, so they will be out of our consideration of dropouts for our courses. But in some cases that didn't happen, but it represented less than 1% of our data sample. So I discarded that idea that a big chunk of these voyeurs and zombies could be refunds. Actually, that's not the case, but very, very good question.
And that'd be another example of, I think, I'm not sure how your team connected it, but if I were doing it, it would be a SQL join. Like you would be combining the separate data set of refunds to the data set on performance. Thank you, Danielle, for those questions. I want to go to Jorge's point here. Looking at the second pool, he says, maybe we should think about age, marital status, how many children a person might have, what their job occupation is. I mean, to me, this maybe comes up to, we don't have the data, or do we?
We do. So the challenge with all these demographic data, that I think it's a very good point, Jorge. Like you have great data scientists in your course.
They're getting great grades.
Yeah. So it's a very good point. The only problem with this kind of data, and we have started to look into it, but the problem is it's self-reported. So we can never be sure, like we don't know how accurate it is. And of course, we don't have information about how many children they have, marital status. We do have information about age, about the professional, if they're professionals or students. We do have some of these, and we are starting to look into it to see if we can just formulate some hypotheses that is also related to each person, like life situation. Yeah, but it's a very, very good point.
And, you know, we run into that. I'm doing a similar project now, very similar, where I'm trying to predict if a truck driver will leave a trucking company. So using machine learning models, very, very similar.
Very similar, yeah.
Absolutely.
Dropout.
Yeah, essentially. And a lot of people say when we do the analysis, okay, well, we need to know how long they've worked for the company, their family status, but we just don't have it in the data set. Sometimes there's that last piece that you identify, you think that might be the explainer. But another way to look at it is, if I can explain all of the variability without that piece, I know something about the significance of that piece that is not in my model. I want to address Tram Trans, good point, thank you. Pointing out that there's a lot of software in SE4X to learn, and that can be overwhelming, and that might cause someone to think about dropping out. I'll give you a specific recommendation. Seek out my friend and yours, CTA Kwong Bowie. He does a great job explaining how to download software. And of course, I know neither your exact age nor Kwong's, but I know that he is oftentimes able to come at it from an older generation perspective and explain things really well. So please post in the forum if you're looking for any help with the software. And you know, I'll try to help. Our CTAs will try to help. Avinash will try to help, but I suspect that Kwong might be your new best friend. Suresh asks, when you said about 90% of total efforts, could you give us a sense of the timeline of this project? When did it start? And when did you start running models? Was it months later, weeks later from when you collected the data? Any kind of unit of time measurement?
Yeah, so first, I was not the only one working on this. As I mentioned, Connor and Sergio were very involved in the data part. And this is not like our full-time job. So we weren't dedicating like 5 days a week, 8 hours a day to this. We were dedicating maybe 1 day a week. So it took us, I don't know, maybe a couple months, but we were 3 people working on it to get the data, and then many iterations. So, but it depends what your data is, what's the size of the data, also how hard it is to extract that data from your database. We had to extract the data from a database that wasn't designed by us or for us, just a general database. So it was a little bit more challenging. So we need to learn what was there, and then also define which variables we wanted to use. So, and create those variables, calculate them by ourselves. So if you want to do a project, similar project for in the supply chain management area, it might be different because you might be just use variables that already exist in your system. And that, I think that would make things easier.
Gosh, we're running late and you have so many great questions. And I won't be able to get to all of them, so we'll do our best to get to what we can. And I think some of them I'm going to not address specifically because I think in the follow-up materials you'll get them. But Ramon has an interesting idea. Do you think maybe the time of year has something to do with Dropout?
That's a really good one. That's the next hypothesis I wanted to test, just to see if there's seasonality in the dropout in our courses. So far, what I've seen is that the dropout is way higher in SC0X and SC1X, and that's consistent. So it's not only that, of course, we have a bigger number of enrolled people and verified people, and then so we have a bigger number of dropouts. In relative terms, so in percentage terms, the dropout is much bigger in 0 and 1 because they are like the beginning, the start of the MicroMasters, the entry points of the MicroMasters. But I want to do that. I want to compare, because we have a lot of historical data now. We have 5 years of data. So I want to see if the same course, the dropout looks different, like for the courses that are running in winter and in summer, for example, for SC1X and SC3X, or in spring and fall for SC4X and SC2X. So yeah, thank you. It's a great suggestion. I already thought about it, but I don't have the answer yet.
That's a great idea.
Look into it.
And that's such a neat way to test it, what you explained, to sort of leverage our course schedule where you'll have the same course in 2 different times of year.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and we can look at all the other variables too, not only dropout, and see if seasonality has an impact on, I don't know, performance or engagement in the forums. I think it's interesting.
Cool.
It's a very supply chain.
Supply seasonality. Chain. Yes. Yeah. Gosh, well, we're running low on time. Thank you all so much. A few follow-up notes. One, Inma mentioned our colleague and friend Sergio, who is part of this. And I want to make sure you know that that's your same friend Sergio from SC2X. And also Connor, you all already know Connor because he is the voice behind your recitations for Orange and Visual Paradigm. So many friends here working on this project. The second thing, I want to talk a little bit about your midterm exam. I won't say anything really. There's not much to report that's not in the instructions that you'll get. But please remember to take a look at the calendar. It will be coming up, opening on January 1st. This is a timed exam, meaning that you cannot take forever to do it. You have a limited amount of time. And also you can't do it on your phones. I saw a lot of chat in here about watching videos on your phones. That's great, but timed exams you need to do at a computer. And we talked about some of you may be having some difficulty installing software, particularly MySQL and Orange. You will need those for the exam. So please, well ahead of the midterm exam, you probably already have it, but if you don't, make sure that you have that software installed. So thank you so much for your time. If I don't see you again, I want to wish you a happy new year and happy holidays. And thank you for being part of the MicroMasters. And I want to thank Dr. Borella for sharing her project with us.
Sure, it was fun. Thank you for inviting me, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year.
All right.
And good luck with the midterm.
Yep. We'll be in touch soon.
Bye.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.